I was sitting at my favorite bar, nursing a whiskey, trying to unwind from another long week. The bar was dimly lit, filled with the low hum of conversations and the occasional clink of glasses. It was a Friday night. The place was buzzing with energy, but I just wanted to relax in my usual corner booth away from the crowd. Then I saw her. My wife Emily walked in, laughing, her hand casually resting on the arm of her assistant, Jake. My heart dropped. Emily and I had been having issues, sure, but seeing her here in my bar with him was a punch to the gut I wasn't prepared for. They took a seat at a neighboring table, not even noticing me. I watched as Jake leaned in, whispering something that made Emily throw her head back and laugh, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in months. It was clear they were more than just colleagues. Jake must have spotted me out of the corner of his eye because he stood up, a cocky grin on his face, and walked over to me. He patted me on the shoulder and said, "You've lost your woman, soldier. Now she is mine." I stared at him, my hands clenching into fists under the table. He swaggered off to the bathroom, leaving me seething, the audacity of that prick. My mind raced with thoughts of what to do next. I couldn't just sit there and let this happen. I stood up and walked over to Emily. She looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to annoyance. "Do you enjoy humiliating me in public?" I asked, my voice low but firm. She rolled her eyes, leaning back in her chair. "Oh, please, like you didn't see this coming? You've been checked out of this marriage for months." Before I could respond, Jake returned. He saw me standing there and immediately got defensive. "Hey, bastard, are you still dealing?" he sneered. Without thinking, I swung my fist and broke his arm. The bar fell silent, all eyes on us. Jake screamed in pain, clutching his arm. Emily stood up, her face a mix of shock and fury. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she yelled. I didn't have an answer. I just knew I couldn't let them walk all over me anymore. As the bar's bouncer came over to break up the scene, I realized this was just the beginning. Emily and Jake had crossed a line, and things were about to get a lot more complicated. After the bar incident, I knew I couldn't just go back to pretending everything was fine. I left before the bouncer could throw me out, leaving Emily to deal with the aftermath. My mind was racing as I drove home, anger and betrayal gnawing at me. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to wait. When I got home, I sat in the dark living room waiting for Emily. It wasn't long before I heard her car pull up. She walked in, her face a storm of emotions, anger, frustration, and surprisingly, a hint of guilt. "Are you happy now?" she snapped, slamming the door behind her. "You made a scene and now Jake S. in the hospital." I stood up, trying to keep my voice calm. "Happy? You were cheating on me with your assistant, and you expect me to just sit back and take it?" She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "We've been over for a long time, Dave. You just didn't want to see it. Jake actually cares about me, something you stopped doing a long time ago. That S bullshit, Emily, and you know it. I've been working my ass off to support us, to give us a good life. And this is how you repay me?" Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, Dawn to play the martyr. You were never here, always working late, always finding excuses to avoid being with me. What did you expect?" I shook my head, feeling the weight of her words. "So, your solution was to start sleeping with your assistant? That's the answer?" She hesitated. Then her expression hardened. "Jake understands me. He listens. Something you have forgotten how to do." I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, I'm sure he listens very well when he's trying to get into your pants." Emilia's face flushed with anger. "You're such a hypocrite, acting all righteous now, but where were you when I needed you? Emotionally, you've been cheating on me for years." The words stung, but I wasn't about to back down. "Maybe I was distant, but I never cheated on you, Emily. That is all on you." She opened her mouth to retort, but before she could say anything, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, then looked back at me, her expression softening slightly. "It's Jake. I need to take this." I snatched the phone from her hand, feeling a surge of anger. "No, you down T. Not until we finish this." She lunged for the phone, but I held it out of reach. "Dave, give it back. Not until you tell me the truth. How long has this been going on?" Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the woman I married. "Since last year. It started off innocent, but things escalated. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I fell for him. I felt a pang of sadness mixed with rage. So what now? Are you leaving me for him? She looked away, unable to meet my gaze. I don't know. I need time to think. Time to think? I echoed, shaking my head in disbelief. You have had plenty of time, Emily. You made your choice. Before she could respond, I threw her phone on the couch and stormed out of the house. I needed to clear my head, to figure out my next move. The woman I thought I knew had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and now everything was unraveling. As I drove aimlessly through the night, I couldn't help but wonder if there was any way to salvage what was left of our broken marriage, or if this was the end. I drove around aimlessly for what felt like hours, the anger and hurt swirling inside me like a storm. I ended up at my brother Mike S.'s place. Mike and I had always been close, and I knew he'd offer me the support I desperately needed right now. When I arrived, Mike was on the porch, a beer in hand. He took one look at my face and knew something was terribly wrong. "Dave, what happened?" I sighed heavily, running a hand through my hair. "It's Emily. She's been cheating on me with her assistant. I caught them tonight." Mike's face hardened with anger. "That S messed up. Come inside, let us talk." We went inside and Mike handed me a beer. We sat on his couch, the TV murmuring in the background. "Tell me everything," he said, and I did. I told him about the bar, about Jake's smug comment, and about the confrontation at home. Mike listened intently, his expression darkening with each word. "What are you going to do?" he asked when I finished. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to end it all right now, but another part of me, I don't know, Mike. We've been together for so long, how do I just walk away from that?" He shook his head. "Dave, I get it. But she betrayed you. That's not something you can just overlook. And that guy, Jake, he sounds like a real piece of work." I nodded, taking a long swig of my beer. "Yeah, he is. I broke his arm tonight. Didn't even think about it, just reacted." Mike raised an eyebrow. "Good for you. He deserved it. But listen, you can let this eat you alive. You need to figure out what you want. Do you really think there's anything left to salvage?" I thought about it, about all the moments Emily and I had shared, the good times, the laughter, and the love. But those memories were now tainted by her betrayal. "I don't know, I just feel so lost." Mike put a hand on my shoulder. "Take some time, clear your head. You can stay here as long as you need. We'll figure this out." That night I slept on Mike's couch, but sleep didn't come easily. I kept replaying the events in my mind. The way Emily laughed with Jake, the way she tried to justify her actions. It was all too much. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. Mike was already up making breakfast. "Morning," he said, handing me a mug. "Thanks," I muttered, taking a sip. "I need to go back home today. Can't avoid it forever." Mike nodded. "Just remember, whatever happens, I've got your back." With a heavy heart, I drove back to my house. The scene of the previous night's confrontation played out in my mind as I pulled into the driveway. Emily's car was gone, and for a moment I felt a strange sense of relief. Inside, the house was eerily quiet. I walked through the rooms, feeling the weight of Emily's absence. Her things were still scattered around, a painful reminder of what we'd lost. I found her phone on the couch where I'd thrown it the night before. It was buzzing with messages from Jake. Curiosity got the better of me, and I unlocked it. The messages were full of worry and anger, Jake demanding to know where she was, blaming me for everything. My blood boiled again, but I knew reacting out of anger wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I called Emily. She picked up after a few rings, her voice tired and strained. "Dave, I am at my sister S. I need some space to think." "Think about what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "About us, about everything. I know I messed up, but I need to figure out what I really want." I sighed, feeling a mix of relief and frustration. "Emily, I don't know if there's anything left to think about. You cheated on me. You humiliated me." "I know," she whispered. "I am sorry. I don't know what to say." "Neither do I said quietly. "But we need to figure this out, one way or another." We hung up and I sat there in the silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I knew the road ahead was going to be tough, filled with difficult decisions and painful conversations. But one thing was clear: whatever happened next, there was no going back to the way things were. Emily's betrayal had changed everything, and the future was now a big, uncertain question mark. The next few days were a blur of awkward conversations and painful realizations. Emily stayed at her sister S, and I tried to focus on work, though my mind was constantly drifting back to our crumbling marriage. The nights were the worst, the silence of the house amplifying my loneliness. One evening, I was cleaning up the living room when I noticed Emily's laptop on the coffee table. I hesitated, then opened it. I needed answers. I needed to understand how everything had fallen apart. The laptop was still logged into Emily's email and social media accounts. I knew it was wrong to snoop, but the need for answers outweighed my guilt. I started reading through her messages, trying to piece together the timeline of her affair. What I found shocked me. It wasn't just Jake. Emily had been flirting with several men online, some messages going back years. She had lied to me repeatedly, creating a web of deceit that stretched far beyond what I'd imagined. One conversation stood out. It was with a guy named Mark, someone I vaguely remembered as a friend from her college days. The messages were explicit, filled with details about their secret meetings and plans to be together. It was clear that Emily had been living a double life for a long time. Just as I was about to close the laptop, I found an email thread between Emily and Jake. The subject line read, "Our plan." My heart raced as I opened it. "Jake, we need to make sure everything is in place before we can move forward. Dave can suspect anything until it is too late. Emily." I know. I've been working on getting him to sign the papers. He is so distracted with work he won't even notice. Jake, good. Once he is out of the picture, we can finally be together. Don't forget to move the money into the new account. Emily. Already done. Just a little more time and this will all be behind us. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. This wasn't just an affair. Emily and Jake were plotting something much bigger. They were planning to take me for everything I had, to leave me with nothing. Fueled by anger and betrayal, I knew I needed to confront Emily with this new information. I grabbed my phone and called her, barely able to contain my fury. "Dave?" she answered, her voice hesitant. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Now." Emily arrived at the house an hour later, her face pale and drawn. She walked in, glancing around as if seeing our home for the first time. I motioned for her to sit down on the couch, and I sat opposite her, the laptop open between us. "What's this about, Dave?" she asked, her voice shaky. I turned the laptop around so she could see the emails. "Care to explain this?" Her eyes widened as she read the messages. "Dave, it's not what it looks like. Don't lie to me, Emily. I know everything. The affair with Jake, the plans to take my money, everything. How could you do this to me?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted it to go this far, but it did, Emily. It did. And now I don't know if there's any way back from this." She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "Jake convinced me it was the only way. He said we could start fresh, that you'd never know." I shook my head in disbelief. "So you were just going to ruin my life? Take everything we built together and leave me with nothing? For what? For him?" Emily looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "I was scared, Dave. I felt trapped. I thought if I could just get out, everything would be okay." "Well, it's not okay, Emily. It's far from okay. You've destroyed everything." We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, Emily looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "What now?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But we can keep doing this. We need to figure out what's next for both of us." As she left the house, I felt a strange sense of relief. The secrets were out in the open, and there was no more pretending. But the road ahead was still uncertain, and I knew the hardest part was yet to come. The revelation of Emily and Jake's plot left me reeling, but it also gave me a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I spent the next few days gathering all the evidence I could find, from emails to bank statements, building a case that would protect me from their scheming. I decided to hire a private investigator to dig deeper into their activities. If there was more to uncover, I needed to know. Meanwhile, I also contacted a divorce attorney to discuss my options. I wasn't ready to make any final decisions, but I needed to be prepared. One evening, my phone rang. It was Mike. "Hey, how are you holding up?" he asked. "Better," I replied, surprising myself with the truth in that statement. "I'm taking steps to protect myself. I'm not going to let Emily and Jake get away with this." "That's good to hear," Mike said. "Listen, I've been thinking. Why don't you come over for dinner tonight? Get out of the house for a bit." I hesitated, then agreed. I needed a break from the constant reminders of betrayal surrounding me at home. At Mike's house, the atmosphere was a welcome change. He and his wife Sarah made sure I felt at ease. We chatted about everything but my situation, and for a few hours I almost felt normal again. But the calm was short-lived. As we were finishing dinner, my phone buzzed with a message from the private investigator. I excused myself and stepped outside to read it. "Investigator Dave, I've found something you need to see. Jake has been in contact with several other women using the same manipulation tactics, and there is more. Emily wasn't his first target. He has done this before." My heart pounded as I read the message. Jake was a serial manipulator, and Emily had fallen into his trap just like others before her. This wasn't just about us. This was a pattern of behavior that needed to be exposed. I called the investigator back, and he filled me in on the details. Jake had a history of targeting vulnerable women, getting them to fall for him, and then convincing them to conspire against their partners. He left a trail of broken relationships and financial ruin in his wake. The next morning, armed with this new information, I met with my attorney. We discussed my options and formulated a strategy. It was clear that Jake's actions went beyond a simple affair; they bordered on criminal. If I played my cards right, I could turn the tables on him. That evening, I received a call from Emily. Her voice was hesitant. "Dave, can we talk?" I agreed to meet her, but this time I was prepared. I needed to confront her with the truth about Jake and see if she was willing to come clean about everything. We met at a neutral location, a quiet cafe where we could talk without interruptions. Emily looked tired and defeated, a stark contrast to the confident woman she had been with Jake. "Dave, I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began. "I know I've hurt you, and I know I've made a mess of everything, but I want to make things right, if that's even possible." I leaned forward, fixing her with a steady gaze. "Emily, I've discovered more about Jake. He's not who you think he is. He has been manipulating you, using you, and you are not the first woman he's done this to." Her eyes widened in shock. "What do you mean?" I showed her the evidence the investigator had uncovered. The messages, the patterns, the other women. Emily's face paled as she read through the documents. "I had no idea," she whispered. "I thought he cared about me." "Jake is a predator, Emily," I said softly, "and you got caught in his web. But we can still do something about it." Tears filled her eyes as she looked up at me. "What do you want me to do?" "Help me bring him down," I replied. "We need to expose him for who he really is. If you are willing to cooperate, we can make sure he doesn't do this to anyone else." Emily nodded, a determined look in her eyes. "I'll do whatever it takes." With Emily on board, we began working together to gather more evidence against Jake. She provided additional information, uncovering more of his deceitful tactics. The more we uncovered, the clearer it became that Jake's actions were calculated and malicious. One night, as we were going through some old messages, Emily paused and looked at me. "Dave, I know I don't deserve it, but thank you for giving me a chance to make this right." I sighed, feeling a mix of emotions. "Emily, we've been through a lot. I don't know what the future holds for us, but right now we need to focus on stopping Jake. Once that's done, we can figure out the rest." We spent the next few weeks meticulously building our case. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when the old wounds between us threatened to reopen, but we stayed focused on the task at hand. Finally, we had enough evidence to take to the authorities. With our lawyer's help, we presented our case, and an investigation was launched. Jake was arrested, facing charges of fraud and manipulation. As the dust settled, Emily and I found ourselves at a crossroads. The ordeal had changed us, revealing truths we couldn't ignore. We sat down one last time to talk about our future. "Dave," Emily said, her voice soft but firm, "I know I've done irreparable damage to our marriage. I am truly sorry for everything, but I think it is best if we part ways. We both need a fresh start." I nodded, feeling a sense of closure. I agree. We need to move on and heal separately. Our divorce was finalized a few months later. It wasn't the ending I had envisioned, but it was a necessary one. As I moved forward, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The betrayal and pain were still there, but I was stronger, more aware, and ready to face whatever came next. The days following the finalization of our divorce were surreal. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town, trying to rebuild my life from the ground up. Emily had moved in with her sister, and we kept our interactions to a minimum. It was strange to think that someone who had been such a huge part of my life was now just a painful memory. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into my projects, working late into the night to keep my mind occupied. Mike checked in on me regularly, making sure I wasn't isolating myself completely. Despite his best efforts, the loneliness was hard to shake off. One evening, Mike invited me over for a beer. I was hesitant at first, but he insisted. "Come on, you need to get out of that apartment. Sarah and I miss you." Reluctantly, I agreed. When I arrived, I found not only Mike and Sarah, but a few of our old friends. They had organized a small gathering, an intervention of sorts, to pull me out of my funk. At first I felt out of place, but as the night went on, the laughter and familiar faces began to lift my spirits. As the weeks turned into months, I started to feel more like myself again. I reconnected with old hobbies, took up jogging, and even joined a book club. It was during one of these book club meetings that I met Lisa. Lisa was different from anyone I had met before. She had a vibrant personality and a contagious laugh that made everyone around her smile. We struck up a conversation about the book we were reading, and I found myself genuinely enjoying her company. Over the next few meetings, Lisa and I grew closer. She was easy to talk to, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope. We started meeting outside of the book club, grabbing coffee or going for walks in the park. It was refreshing to be with someone who didn't know about my past, who saw me as just Dave, and not the guy whose wife had cheated on him. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I found a letter in my mailbox. It was from Emily. My heart raced as I opened it, unsure of what to expect. "Dear Dave, I hope this letter finds you well. I've been doing a lot of thinking since our divorce, and there are some things I need to say. First, I want to apologize again for everything I put you through. I know my actions were unforgivable, and I don't expect you to ever forgive me, but I need you to know that I'm truly sorry. Secondly, I've been seeing a therapist, and it's helped me understand a lot about myself and my actions. I was lost, confused, and I let Jake manipulate me in ways I never thought possible. That doesn't excuse what I did, but I want you to know that I am working on becoming a better person. Lastly, I want to thank you for the time we had together. Despite how things ended, we had some beautiful moments, and I'll always cherish those memories. I hope you can find it in your heart to remember the good times too. I wish you nothing but happiness and success in your new life. You deserve it. Sincerely, Emily." Reading her words, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, but also a strange sense of closure. Emily's letter was a reminder of the past, but it also marked a turning point. It was time to fully let go and embrace the future. I decided not to respond to the letter. There was nothing more to say. Instead, I focused on the life I was building. Lisa and I continued to grow closer, and eventually, we started dating. She was a breath of fresh air, and being with her felt natural and right. One weekend, Lisa and I decided to take a trip to the coast. We rented a small cabin overlooking the ocean and spent our days exploring the beach and our nights talking by the fire. It was during this trip that I realized how much I had healed and how ready I was to move forward. As we walked along the shore one evening, Lisa took my hand and looked at me with her warm, understanding eyes. "You've been through a lot, Dave, but I'm glad you're here with me." I squeezed her hand, feeling a surge of gratitude. I am glad too, Lisa, more than you know. The waves crashed gently against the shore, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a deep sense of peace. My past with Emily was a painful chapter, but it didn't define me. I was stronger now, more resilient, and ready to embrace whatever the future held. With Lisa by my side, I felt hopeful and alive. Life had thrown me a curveball, but I had managed to pick up the pieces and find happiness again. The journey wasn't easy, but it was worth it. And as I stood there, hand in hand with Lisa, I knew that the best was yet to come. Months passed, and life continued to move forward. Lisa and I were growing stronger as a couple, and I felt happier than I had in a long time. We had just celebrated our 6-month anniversary with a romantic dinner, and everything seemed to be falling into place. One Saturday afternoon, Lisa and I decided to go to a local art festival. It was a beautiful day, and the streets were filled with people, colorful stalls, and the smell of delicious food. We wandered through the exhibits, enjoying the creativity and energy of the event. As we turned a corner, I froze. There, standing in front of a photography booth, was Emily. She was with a group of friends, laughing and chatting as if nothing had ever happened. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a mix of emotions surge through me. Lisa noticed my reaction and followed my gaze. Is that? Yes, I said, cutting her off. That's Emily. Emily spotted us and her face changed, surprise and discomfort replacing her previous cheerfulness. She excused herself from her friends and walked over to us, her expression a mix of awkwardness and something else I couldn't quite place. Dave, she said, her voice tentative. It's good to see you. I nodded, unsure of what to say. Emily. Lisa, sensing the tension, smiled politely. Hi, I'm Lisa. Emily returned the smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Nice to meet you, Lisa. There was an uncomfortable silence before Emily spoke again. I didn't expect to see you here. How have you been? Good, I replied. Things have been good. And you? She hesitated, then nodded. I've been better. Still working on myself, you know. Glad to hear it, I said, wanting to keep the conversation as brief as possible. Well, we should get going. Lots to see. Emily's eyes flickered with an emotion I couldn't identify. Regret? Sadness? Of course. It was good to see you, Dave. And nice meeting you, Lisa. We exchanged polite goodbyes, and Lisa and I continued walking. As we moved away from Emily, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. That chapter of my life was truly behind me, and I was ready to leave it there. Later that evening, as Lisa and I sat on my apartment balcony watching the sunset, she turned to me. How do you feel about seeing Emily today? I sighed, considering her question. It was unexpected, but I think it was good for me. Seeing her reminded me of how far I have come and how much better my life is now. Lisa nodded, her hand resting on mine. You've come a long way, Dave. I am proud of you. Thank you, I said, feeling a surge of gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. I realized that I had finally found peace, and I was ready to embrace the future with open arms. A few weeks later, I received a call from my lawyer. Jake's trial was coming up, and they needed me to testify. It was a daunting prospect, but I knew it was necessary. Jake needed to be held accountable for his actions, not just for what he did to me, but for all the other women he had manipulated. When the day of the trial arrived, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. Lisa accompanied me for support, her presence a calming force. As I took the stand and recounted my story, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Speaking the truth was cathartic, and seeing Jake's smug expression falter was satisfying. The trial lasted several days, with multiple testimonies painting a clear picture of Jake's manipulative behavior. In the end, he was found guilty on several counts of fraud and manipulation, and he received a substantial prison sentence. Justice had been served, and I felt a sense of closure. With the trial behind me, life continued to move forward. Lisa and I grew even closer, and I found myself thinking about the future in ways I hadn't before. One evening, as we sat by the fire in our favorite park, I took her hand. Lisa, I began, my voice steady. I know we haven't talked about this much, but I want you to know that I see a future with you. You've brought so much joy and healing into my life, and I can't imagine it without you. She smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. I feel the same way, Dave. You've been through so much, and I'm honored to be part of your journey. We sat in silence, the crackling fire and the night sounds around us creating a perfect backdrop for the moment. I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. A year later, on a beautiful autumn day, Lisa and I stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It was the same spot where I had first realized I was ready to move forward with her. As the waves crashed against the rocks below, I got down on one knee and took her hand. Lisa, you've shown me what true love and partnership look like. Will you marry me? Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. Yes, Dave. 1,000 times yes. As we embraced, I felt a profound sense of happiness and peace. My journey had been long and painful, but it had led me to this moment. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace it with the woman I loved by my side. The months leading up to our wedding were a whirlwind of activity and emotions. Lisa and I worked together to plan every detail, from the venue to the guest list, making sure our special day would reflect the journey we had shared. Despite the excitement, there were moments of anxiety and doubt, remnants of the betrayal I had experienced with Emily. But Lisa's unwavering support and love kept me grounded. One evening, while we were going through some old photos to use for our wedding slideshow, Lisa turned to me, her expression serious. Dave, I know you've been through a lot, and I want to make sure we start our marriage with complete honesty and trust. I nodded, understanding where she was coming from. I appreciate that, Lisa. I want the same thing. No secrets, no lies. She took my hand, her eyes searching mine. Is there anything you're still holding on to from your past? Anything we need to address before we get married? Her question caught me off guard, but I knew it was important. I took a deep breath and thought about the lingering feelings and unresolved issues. I guess I still have some trust issues. It's not because of you, it's just. After what happened with Emily, it is hard to fully let go. Lisa squeezed my hand reassuringly. I understand, Dave. Trust takes time to rebuild, and I am here for you every step of the way. We all work through it together. Her words were comforting, and I felt a sense of relief. I realized that I didn't have to carry the burden of my past alone. With Lisa by my side, I could finally start to heal. The day of our wedding arrived, a beautiful sunny day filled with promise and joy. We exchanged vows in front of our closest friends and family, pledging to love and support each other through all of life's challenges. As I looked into Lisa's eyes, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had brought light into my life after so much darkness, and I was ready to build a future with her. Our honeymoon was a magical escape, a chance to relax and enjoy each other's company without the distractions of everyday life. We traveled to a remote beach destination, spending our days exploring the island and our nights talking about our dreams and aspirations. One evening, as we watched the sunset from our private bungalow, Lisa brought up a topic that had been on her mind. Dave, I've been thinking about what you said before the wedding, about your trust issues. I want you to know that I'm committed to earning your trust every day. I smiled, feeling a surge of love for her. You already have, Lisa, just by being you. But I appreciate it, and I promise to work on letting go of the past. We have a future to build, and I don't want anything holding us back. We sealed our promise with a kiss, the setting sun casting a golden glow over us. It was a moment of pure happiness, and I knew that whatever challenges we faced, we would face them together. As we settled into married life, we made a conscious effort to communicate openly and honestly. There were still moments of doubt and insecurity, but we faced them head-on, knowing that our relationship was worth fighting for. One day, while we were unpacking boxes in our new home, I came across an old photo album. It was filled with pictures from my life with Emily, a stark reminder of the past. I felt a pang of sadness and nostalgia, but also a sense of closure. Lisa noticed the album and came over to sit beside me. Do you want to talk about it? She asked gently. I shook my head, closing the album and setting it aside. No, I'm good. That's a part of my past, but it doesn't define me. What matters is here and now with you. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek. I'm glad to hear that. We are building something beautiful together, and I am so grateful to be on this journey with you. Our life together was filled with ups and downs, as all marriages are. But through it all, we remained committed to each other, growing stronger with every challenge. The trust we had built was a solid foundation, and it allowed us to weather the storms that came our way. One evening, several years into our marriage, we sat on the porch of our home, watching our children play in the yard. Lisa leaned her head on my shoulder and sighed contentedly. We've come a long way, haven't we? I nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. We have. And I wouldn't change a thing. Our journey had been filled with trials and tribulations, but it had also brought us closer together. We had faced our pasts, embraced our present, and looked forward to a future filled with love and happiness. As the sun set on another beautiful day, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, with trust, love, and unwavering support. Our story was just beginning, and I couldn't wait to see what the future held. Life had settled into a comfortable routine, filled with love and the occasional chaos that comes with raising kids. Lisa and I were stronger than ever, our bond fortified by the trials we had faced together. But every now and then, the past had a way of resurfacing, reminding us that some ghosts were not so easily laid to rest. One evening, as we were cleaning up after dinner, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from an old friend, Tom. He and I had drifted apart over the years, but his message piqued my curiosity. Tom, hey Dave. Long time no talk. I am in town for a few days. Want to grab a drink and catch up? I mentioned it to Lisa, who encouraged me to go. It'll be good for you to reconnect. Besides, I can handle the kids for a night. I smiled, appreciating her support. Thanks, Lisa. I think I will. We met at a quiet bar downtown, a place we used to frequent in our younger days. Seeing Tom again brought back a flood of memories, and we spent the first hour reminiscing about old times. Then the conversation took an unexpected turn. So, how have things been? Tom asked, his tone shifting to something more serious. I heard about everything with Emily. That must have been tough. I nodded, taking a sip of my beer. Yeah, it was. But I'm in a better place now, happily married to a wonderful woman. Tom smiled. I'm glad to hear that. You deserve it. But there's something you should know. I ran into Emily a while back. She's not doing well. I felt a pang of sympathy mixed with a touch of bitterness. What happened? Tom sighed. She is struggling. After everything fell apart with Jake and then you, she couldn't get her life back on track. She's been in and out of relationships, jobs, you name it. She asked about you, wanted to know if you were happy. I didn't know how to respond. A part of me felt sorry for her, but another part of me remembered the pain she had caused. That's unfortunate, I said carefully, but I've moved on. I hope she finds her way. Tom nodded. I figured you'd say that. Just thought you should know. I left the bar feeling conflicted. Seeing Tom had been great, but the news about Emily stirred up old emotions. When I got home, Lisa was waiting for me, a concerned look on her face. How was it? She asked, hugging me tightly. It was good to see Tom, I said, sitting down on the couch. But he told me something about Emily. She's not doing well. Lisa frowned. I am sorry to hear that. How do you feel about it? I shrugged, struggling to find the right words. I don't know. Part of me feels bad for her, but another part of me can forget what she did. It's a weird mix of emotions. Lisa sat beside me, taking my hand. It's okay to feel that way. She was a big part of your life, and it's natural to have mixed feelings. But remember, you've built a wonderful life now. You're not defined by your past. Her words were comforting, and I realized how lucky I was to have someone like Lisa in my life. Thank you, I said, kissing her gently. You always know how to make things better. A few weeks later, I received another unexpected message, this time from Emily herself. Seeing her name on my screen was jarring, and I hesitated before opening it. Emily, hi Dave, I know this is out of the blue, but I just wanted to reach out and apologize again for everything. I heard you were doing well, and I am genuinely happy for you. I've been struggling, and I guess I just wanted to say I'm sorry. truly. I stared at the message, unsure of how to respond. After a long pause, I decided to show it to Lisa. "What do you think?" I asked. Lisa read the message and looked at me thoughtfully. "It sounds like she's trying to find some closure. Maybe it is time for you to do the same." I nodded, appreciating her perspective. "You're right. I need to let go of any lingering resentment." I took a deep breath and replied to Emily. Me. "Hi, Emily. Thank you for reaching out. I appreciate your apology. It's taken a long time, but I've moved on and found happiness. I hope you can find peace and rebuild your life too. Take care." Sending the message felt like lifting a weight off my shoulders. It was a final step in closing that chapter of my life. As time went on, Lisa and I continued to build our life together, facing new challenges and celebrating new joys. Our children grew, our love deepened, and the past slowly faded into the background. One evening, as we were watching the sunset from our porch, Lisa turned to me with a smile. "You know, I think we have built something truly beautiful here." I nodded, feeling a profound sense of contentment. "We have, and I couldn't have done it without you." She kissed me softly, her eyes filled with love. "Here's to many more years of happiness." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had led me to this moment, and I knew, with Lisa by my side, the future was brighter than I could have ever imagined. Years passed, and life continued its beautiful, unpredictable journey. Lisa and I had settled into a rhythm that was both comforting and exhilarating. Our children were growing up quickly, filling our days with laughter, challenges, and unforgettable moments. One summer, we decided to take a family trip to a lakeside cabin, a place where we could escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life and enjoy each other's company. The kids were thrilled, and the excitement was contagious. It felt like the perfect way to create new memories and strengthen the bonds we had built. The cabin was rustic but charming, nestled in a quiet corner of the forest with a stunning view of the lake. We spent our days swimming, hiking, and exploring, and our nights around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and telling stories. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned shades of pink and orange, Lisa and I sat on the porch watching the kids play by the water. She leaned her head on my shoulder, a contented sigh escaping her lips. "Remember when we first met?" she asked softly. "How uncertain everything seemed back then." I smiled, wrapping my arm around her. "I do. It feels like a lifetime ago. We've come so far since then." Lisa looked up at me, her eyes shining with love. "I'm so grateful for every moment we've shared, even the tough ones. They've brought us to where we are now." I kissed her forehead, feeling a deep sense of peace. "Me too, Lisa. I wouldn't change a thing." That night, as we sat around the campfire, our youngest, Lily, asked, "Daddy, how did you and Mommy meet?" Lisa and I exchanged a smile. We had told the story many times, but it never got old. I began, recounting how we met at the book club, our first dates, and how our relationship had blossomed. As I spoke, I glanced at Lisa, remembering all the ups and downs we had faced together. It was a story of resilience, love, and the power of second chances. And the rest, I concluded, is history. We built a life together, filled with love and happiness. The kids listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder. It was a reminder of how far we had come and how much we had to be grateful for. The next morning, Lisa and I took a walk along the lake while the kids were still asleep. The early morning mist hung over the water, creating a serene, almost magical atmosphere. As we walked, Lisa turned to me. "I've been thinking about something, Dave." "Oh? What's that?" I asked, curious. "I think it's time we took another big step," she said, her eyes twinkling with excitement. "I have been offered a job opportunity in a different city. It's a big change, but it could be a great adventure for all of us." I stopped, taking in her words. "A new city? That's a big decision." She nodded. "I know, but I think it could be good for us. A fresh start in a new place, new experiences for the kids. What do you think?" I considered it for a moment, then smiled. "I think it sounds like an amazing opportunity. Let's do it." Lisa's face lit up with joy. "Really? You are okay with it?" I kissed her, feeling a surge of excitement. Absolutely. As long as we are together, we can handle anything. The next few months were a whirlwind of preparations for our move. It was a bittersweet process, saying goodbye to our old home and the memories we had created there. But the prospect of a new adventure filled us with anticipation and excitement. When we finally settled into our new home, we felt a sense of renewal. The kids adapted quickly, making new friends and exploring their new surroundings. Lisa thrived in her new job, and I found new opportunities as well. One evening, as we unpacked the last of our boxes, I came across the old photo album again. This time, instead of feeling pain, I felt a sense of closure. I showed it to Lisa, and we flipped through the pages together, reflecting on how far we had come. "This is our past," I said, closing the album and setting it aside. "But our future is what matters now." Lisa smiled, leaning into me. "Here's to our future, then, filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities." As we stood together looking out at the new horizon, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Our journey was far from over, but with Lisa by my side, I was ready for whatever came next. Life had taught me that resilience and love could overcome even the greatest obstacles. And as I looked into the eyes of the woman who had changed my life, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The past was behind us, and the future was bright. Together we could conquer anything. And as we embraced, I knew that our story was just beginning. The best was yet to come.